Now then, chaps and chapettes, welcome to the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel. Now, I was asked by a customer to replace the rear shocks on the back of his side-by-side. And I asked him the reason why. He says, oh, well, the back end's dragging. It's a bit soft on the rear. And when I load the vehicle up, it just loses its ride height, you know, and it just can't cope with the weight, even though the weight was within spec. So I said, hey, look, you know, the shocks are actually in really good condition. There's no preload adjustment on these particular shocks, which is a bit of a shame. But I said, look, why don't we just remove the springs and put a little collar on the shock between the spring and the lower mount. And that way it's going to increase the preload and basically give the spring more lifting effect onto the chassis and the body of the vehicle and lift it back up to where it should be. Basically, you know, make the spring a bit stronger. Now, as some of you guys already know, I've got here a lathe and we've got a power hacksaw too. So I whizzed out to the shops and I picked up a big chunk of aluminium tube. And it actually wasn't that expensive. A 1 meter length of this was about $100 New Zealand, so that's about £40 UK. I thought that was pretty good actually. It's quite a lot of aluminium there. And what I've done is I've cut off 2 chunks. And these are actually just over 30 mil. These are about 32 mil in length. And the outside diameter we're going to leave completely standard, and the inside we're going to machine out on the lathe a little bit. And it gets a bit more complicated. It's not just a single cut. We've also got to allow room for a spacer, or a collar, a mounting collar, which is then going to sit inside that tube. Now, to change the shocks on these bikes is extremely expensive. I mean, you can be looking at $500–600 per shock absorber to replace them. And when it's only the spring that's a bit soft and the actual damping unit itself is in good condition and all the bushes are fine and everything, then, you know, really, why go to all that expense when you can solve the problem much, much cheaper? So basically, this is one of the shocks that I've taken off. And as you can see, it's quite a hefty unit, and it's got a progressive coil spring. You can tell that because some of the coils are much closer together than others. This part is the stronger part of the spring. It's a lot harder to compress the fewer coils than it is to compress the more coils. Believe me, I know it seems a bit weird, but that's the way it is. Now, I have already done one of these shock units because this is again against the clock, and that's what it's going to look like when it's all finished. And what I've gone for there is a 30mm increase. Basically, that's the length of the collar, and that's critical. You've got to make damn sure that both of them are the same size, otherwise the vehicle would list to one side, like the old Land Rovers, the old Series 1 Land Rovers used to do that, didn't they? Okay, so probably the first job now, we're going to head over to the lathe, and I'm going to quickly machine up to camera. I'll do it for you and see what's going on. Just a few edits to show you how it's done, and then once those 2 collars are made, one collar now actually, we can then chuck it into a little jig that I made earlier on this morning. Basically, it looks a bit like that, just made from some old scrap, because what I wanted to use to do this job was some standard automotive, very dangerous, as any mechanics that have used these know to stand well clear when they're using them, because they can fly off if you're not careful. These are the ones that don't have the safety chains on. These are from Repco, and they weren't very expensive, but they do the job, and they're a lot better than, well, man, I've seen some pretty rough attempts at taking springs off front struts. I think the cheapest way is, well, maybe it's not cheapest. I've seen people do it with zip ties, thousands of zip ties. Not a good idea, is it? These things, I think these cost about $20 a set, $25 a set, so they probably use more than $25 with the zip ties. Okay, so I'll head over to the lathe and I'll show you basically how I machine these up. This fix, I was thinking when I was asked by the customer to do this, this is probably quite applicable to many, many quad bikes and side-by-sides all over the world. You know, people like to load them up, and you don't want to spend heaps of money operating all the springs and stuff. There is just one major concern with this, and because basically we are limiting the length of the spring, there's more chance that that spring will become coil bound if the vehicle is overloaded. basically what happens then is it becomes like one big chunk of metal. There's no more play, no more movement, and if the vehicle's going over a bump at any kind of speed, the shock of that impact won't be absorbed by, well, the shock absorber anymore. It's going to be transmitted directly to the frame of the vehicle, and that can cause some pretty serious damage to bushes and the shock mountings, because those shock mounts are not designed to carry the weight of the vehicle, and in actual fact they would be momentarily. So if you do this fix to your bike and you get these either machined up yourself, you know, or you get them done local engineering firm, they don't charge very much to get them made. This video is more about the idea of doing it as opposed to actually doing it yourself. But if you do have it done, then do be wary that you don't massively overload your vehicle and risk the coil spring going coil bound. If you hear a loud bang from the back when you're driving across a field once you've done this job, then there's a very good chance that that's the spring bottoming out, and you need to really avoid that, otherwise you're going to have some very expensive repair bills coming up. Okay, right, without further ado, let's head over to the lathe and make a start. Here we go. Okay, so the first job is to face off the ends and get the width of the tube set, because obviously the cuts are not they're not ready at 90 degrees. A bit crappy, to be honest. That's power hacksaws for you. Right, so pop that into the lathe. There we go. Right. Perfect. Would help if the tools are in the right position, wouldn't it? Okay, here we go. Really enjoy working with aluminium. It's actually so nice to machine. Excellent. Okay, well, I think we've got rid of all the cut marks. Yeah, we have. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just give a bit of a chamfer on the outside. So we'll change the rotation of the chuck. Perfect. Right, we'll flick it round and we'll tidy up the other side. Let's give it a clean off, get rid of some of that swarf. It's not often I'm on the lathe, but yeah, every now and again, it's a very, very handy machine. Oh, don't forget your PPE if you're going to use a lathe. Right. Always get into trouble for that. Okay. There we go. Ooh, nice straight cut there, look. This old lathe came from a school called Warkworth, not far away. And the school decided not to teach the children how to use a lathe anymore. I think it's terrible. I think I was about 13 when I first started using a lathe at school. Chamfer on that corner, get rid of the sharp edge, and then we'll have a measure up and see how much more we need to take off. Yeah. Darkly. Right. So 30mm we said, didn't we? For the length of the tube. And the length is down to, you know, how much preload you want to apply. And of course, you know, how much you can, the constraints of the shock, to be honest. Smaller shocks, you won't be able to put as much as that on. And they do the same thing on four-wheel drives and things as well, you know. Just to give them a bit more lift without changing the springs. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Okay, so at the moment, because the piece is hard against the chuck, so we can measure off there. At the moment we're on 32.29. So a bit more to go yet. Right, just over 2mm to go. With that, can't be far off now. Oh, 31. Where are you, look? There we are. 0.17. Get in there slowly. Swarf's the worst thing, isn't it? Best to keep checking because you know, you can't glue it back on again. Right, 30.65. Just over half a mil to go. Does get a bit laborious sometimes, especially if you've got lots of these to make. 30.4, we're getting there. Chamfer on that corner because it's getting a bit sharp. It gets in the way of the measuring device. Yeah, I think I only paid, what was it, $1,500 New Zealand for this. So that's for this lathe, so that's pretty good. Then I had a few bits and pieces to buy for it. So it probably owes me a couple of grand. Oh, there you are, look, 30.15. So a gnat's hair to come off next, and we should be about there. There is a tolerance, you know. It's not rocket science. Out there now. Don't speak too soon there. Oh, and that wasn't edited. Look at that. Absolutely bang on. It's not often that happens. Right. Okay, so now we can start to machine the inside of the tube, and we need to machine all of it, basically all the way through 49 mil in diameter. That's the outside diameter, the actual shock absorber unit. The actual damper itself is about 48.5, so we need a little bit of clearance for fitting it. So 49, plus it may not be dead round. But at one end we also need to go in about 5 mil and increase it to 52.5 mil diameter to accept that steel flange that sits at the bottom of the shock that supports the spring. We need to use that steel flange, we don't want to just throw it away. Okay, so let's move our little tool around a little bit and make a start digging out. There we go. Right. Still recording. Absolutely. Brilliant. It's very important you don't go too far down the tube, otherwise you're going to hit the chuck. It has happened before, and it's not a pretty sight. Okay, see how we're doing. Oh, a bit further yet. Enough. Okay. Bring it back down, do another pass, I think. nice dwarf. Right. Okay, so we said 49, didn't we? Is what it needs to be. We'll just zero the verniers. Okay, so we're basically at 48. So we've got half a mil to take off on the wall thickness. Because we can do that in one pass if we get it set right. Oh, look at that. That's good enough for me. 48.98. Can you see that on there? Look? So that's a pretty good run, that one. So we'll run that down to the bottom. Final pass is always good to come back nice and slow. This gives it a good finish. Cool. Okay, right, we'll flick it round and we'll sort the other end out. Nearly there. Oh, never leave a chuck key in this deal. Right. Now we should be set at 49, but we can't do all that in one hit anyway. We're going to be going out to 52.5 for about a 5mm depth. So we'll take it down to what we had in the diameter, the ID on the other side. Nice saw, thank you. So we've gone beyond now the 49, we've set about 5mm, only approximate, probably 6mm. Doesn't need to be exact. Pass, then we'll measure it. See what we've got. Okay, so at the moment we're at approximately, near as damn it, There you go, 50.19. So we've got to take off about 1 more mil to get to 52.19. We need 52.5, so we're not far away. So 51.3. Far off now, I want to say. Okay, we're at 52, bang on. Quarter of a mil. Hmm, 52.3, and that's hair. Exactly. Should be about there now. Not yet. A little bit overshot. 52. 52.6. That'll do just fine. Oakley dokley. Right, so all we need to do now is put a chamfer on this side and one on the other side. So we'll just move the tool a little bit. Work. It's always good practice to keep cleaning your chuck out and not leave chuck keys in, Mr. Young. Jeez. Useless. Right. Because if you leave the swarf in there, when you come to refit this, sometimes the swarf gets trapped behind it, and then the whole thing's a bit off centre and a bit to kilt, we call it. Right. Perfect. Job done. Mint. Get rid of those. Right, so job done. That's how to make a spacer. Now, obviously the length of the tube that you use is going to be determined on you know, how much lift you need, how much additional preload you need to apply to the shock. And it is a little bit trial and error, to be perfectly honest. So you're probably better off making this a little bit bigger than what you think, and then you can always chuck it back in the lathe, machine it down. You can't glue stuff back on again, can you? So just for clarity, the main ID is about, well, it's 49 millimeters. I think it's pretty much bang on, wasn't it? And then we've got a little shoulder just here, which I machined out to 52.6. I overshot a fraction, but it really doesn't matter. These, you know, it's not like a piston and a cylinder bore. You know, it's the tolerances are much larger. So what we can do now is get the old jig fired up, put it in the lathe. Sorry, put it in the vise. I've got lathe on the brain at the moment. Put it in the vise, and then I can show you how to compress the spring. So we can remove the collar at the top. The little collar that we've got to get out is this thing here, look. So we've got to squash the spring down, get that collar out, lift the spring off the shock absorber, and fit our new spacer. And then put it all back together again. Yeah, not bad at all. Right, here we go. Okay, so I say I knocked this up this morning because I've got quite a few of these shocks to do actually. It's not just for one customer. And it's just made out of a bit of scrap, to be honest. Didn't take too long. Beauty of having a MIG. Right. Stick that in there. There, good and tight. Get our shock. Drop it in through. Okay. Now for the dangerous part. This is where I get to risk life and limb for you people. Okay, so plan of attack. That needs to go on there. Now, unfortunately, because of these shocks, the springs are a much smaller diameter than those on cars. I only get one of the two fingers of these standard automotive spring compressors onto the spring, which adds to my danger even further. But hey, it's all in the name of YouTube, isn't it? Right, so I'll stick that one on there. Just slacken it off a little bit. There we go. Right. It's a bit fiddly to start off with, but it does work. And it's very important that you get these things opposite on the spring itself. There we go, look. You've got to getting it started is the hardest bit. This is where you need like seven hands. We're getting there. Okay. Right, so just line everything up. Perfect. Okay, so we need to move it around, and at this point in time I'm going to stop and remove the Andy Mechanic Cutting Tools cap and use, where the hell it's gone. I'm going to use a full face mask, and the reason for that is if this thing lets go, it causes a lot of damage. If that damage is on your face, it's not good. I recently had a piece of metal hit me in the eye a few months ago. Man, I was so lucky, but easily lost an eye. So face mask it is, and it's a bit grubby too. Now when you're doing this, it's important you keep checking all your mounts and you do it evenly. That's the key to it. You've got to do it evenly. If you don't do it evenly, big problems. So you can see already the spring is now freed off that adjustable collar. We're starting to compress the spring down. I just need to keep going a bit further before I can remove that collar. Doesn't take too much doing. There we go, I should be able to get that collar out now. Ooh. Dangerous. Right, one collar removed, so now we can release the tension on the spring by turning the clamp the opposite way. And again, a bit at a time, trying to keep it parallel. A lot of lads in the workshop will put a raffle gun on here. It doesn't work with the camera being so close. So it's not going to happen. Almost there, you can feel the tension now being released. Everything's getting a lot easier to move. Excellent stuff. Now, remove that spring. Right, put the cap back on now, I think. Somebody needs a haircut, don't they? I know. One day. Okay, so here we have the shock absorber unit of the coilover shock combination. Now, what we need to do is, we don't need to remove that. Our little collar that we made, once we've removed all the dirt, where's my eye brush? There, just get some of the dirt out of there. To make sure this thing seats properly, don't we? Okay, that's going to work. Okay, so there's the collar, and with the shoulder, that's going to sit and allow clearance for that extra steel piece that protrudes upwards. Bloody good, look at that, even fits. Okay, so now we can go back to the rig and fit the spring, compress it down, put that top collar back in, the little removable collar, release the tension, and the job's done. Right, back to the rig. Oh, right, so we'll pop the old shock back in there again, put the pin through just to hold it in place, and now drop that spring back down. Just make sure that your piston top of the shock's pulled all the way upwards, otherwise you end up having to try and compress the spring a lot more than you need to. The spring is now going to sit on that collar. Okay, let's get this rigged up. Okay, that's one. This is about the hardest bit really, isn't it? Always turn these things the wrong direction. Right, I think we're on. Yes, I know. Safety mask, let's get it started there, just to make sure it's all correct. It's really important that the two clips are bang opposite each other, otherwise it pulls the spring at an angle and it doesn't work. Basically, it's all goes to shit. Right, and just make sure that the inner part of the shock, the top bush, the piston rod if you call it, is clearing the inside, otherwise it'll go down with the spring and you'll wonder where it's gone. You'll be chasing it. Okay, here we go. Now obviously this time around it's actually quite a lot harder. You're going to have to compress the spring a lot more than it was previously. That's the whole reason for having the collar. Slowly but surely, everything still seems to be where it should be. Yeah, I had a hunch that was happening. Piston rod was going down with the spring a little bit. There we are. See if that's enough. And you can see here that the spring has come across towards me, so you've got to sort of align it a bit to get the collar in. Oh, there we go. That was a bit easy, wasn't it? Now, right. Also, just make sure that your eyelets are lined up, otherwise you'll have problems later on getting it back on the vehicle. Okay, we can release slowly. Very slowly. Almost there. Woohoo! Ugh. Fantastic. So there you go, pretty simple task, but it does require the use obviously of a lathe. Now, not many people have their own lathe at home, that's granted, but there's plenty of engineering shops around that will easily make you up those collars if you can give them some measurements. On this particular vehicle, that 30mm collar will actually lift the body of the vehicle by about 55mm, so it'll increase the ride height at the back end by 55. It's going to lift the chassis off the ground by another 55mm, increasing ground clearance, but it's also going to help you know, to carry more load at the same time. It's going to sag less. Well, I hope you found the video helpful. It's something that I had to do in the workshop, and you know, I had to come up with an ingenious plan of how to compress those springs safely in a repeatable, controllable fashion. And I think I pretty much achieved that with some scrap metal in about an hour and a half's time. Didn't cost me really anything at all. And now, hopefully that rig I can use on a number of different bikes and ROVs and stuff, the side-by-sides, to fit these collars. Now, if any of you want any of these collars, I can supply them if you want. I can soon knock them up, but just tell me the dimensions you want them, and then I can machine them up and post them out to you. I don't envisage that any of you will ask, but it is an option. If you live here in New Zealand, or I suppose anywhere in the world really, just give me the dimensions and I'll knock them up, or I'll give you a price, and then I can send them out to you. Okay, well, my name's Andy Young, and like I say, this is the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel, and thanks for watching. You'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, Google+, and Twitter. However, I would prefer that you communicate through the comments section on YouTube, because that's where the videos are, that's where everybody looks for the information. If you want to email me, you can do. There's an email link in my profile on YouTube. If you'd like to subscribe, and that's one of the important things, isn't it? You know, why not subscribe? Because there's going to be a lot more videos. This is probably about the 300th video. I lose count, to be honest. But there's going to be many, many more videos over the next few years. This is something that I really enjoy doing, and the comments that I get back are just fantastic. They really inspire me to do more. And you know, it's really weird. Some of the abstract videos turn out to be really popular. things that you don't think people are going to find interesting or helpful turn out to be very, very interesting and incredibly helpful for some people. So if you want to subscribe, click on the subscribe button. You'll see a little gear symbol turn up on the screen. Click on the gear symbol and then you can tick the box to turn on notifications, and that way you'll get an email from our friends at YouTube, hopefully whenever I upload any new videos. And things are a little bit slow at the moment. I've just started a new job with Yamaha New Zealand, about 3 months in now, and it's pretty damn busy, to be honest. So finding time to make videos is actually quite difficult. It's a bit of a juggling act. When I was down at Unitec as a lecturer, I had a lot more free time. Damn. Okay, crew, thanks for watching. Cheers, over and out.